Hey guys, glad you could drop in. Tonight we're sailing back in time, not to the decks of a fearsome longship, but to the smoky, crowded, and surprisingly complex world of the Viking home. Forget the horned helmets and glorious battles for a moment. We're about to spend a day in a place where the real Viking saga unfolded, the Longhouse. First, get comfy, wiggle your shoulders, let the mattress hug you. If these calm tales help you relax, go ahead and tap like, and perhaps subscribe to join us for more calm nights like this one. Be sure to tell us in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's always fascinating to see our global community. Ready? Breathe in and out. Good. Let's enter the Longhouse together. You wake not to a bell, but to a chill that has crept through the thick turf walls and settled deep in your bones. The air is thick, heavy with the ghost of last night's fire. A complex perfume of wood smoke, roasting meat, unwashed wool, and the faint, earthy scent of the livestock, who are, at this very moment, your roommates. You are lying on a raised wooden platform that runs along the wall of the Longhouse, a space that serves as your bed, your bench, and your general station in life. There are no private rooms here, no doors to close. Privacy is a concept that hasn't been invented yet. Your world is one long, open communal space, shared with 20 other family members, a handful of servants, and a very opinionated goat who is currently staring at you from across the hall. You're pretty sure he knows what you did in your dream last night. The Longhouse itself is a single vast hall, its curved wooden frame resembling the hull of an overturned ship. The roof is a thick layer of turf, and the walls are made of timber planks, or wattle and daub, a lattice of woven branches smeared with clay and dung. Down the centre of the hall, a long shallow pit holds the dying embers of the central hearth. This is the heart of your home, the source of all warmth and light. A thin grey light filters down from the smoke hole in the roof, illuminating a world of smoke, shadows, and sleeping forms. You can hear the slow, rhythmic breathing of your family, the occasional snort from a pig, and the soft rustle of the straw in your mattress. The world outside is still dark, but inside the Longhouse, the first stirrings of a new day have begun. You sit up, the rough wool of your tunic scratching against your skin. You slept in your clothes, of course. Everyone does. It saves time and provides an extra layer against the relentless Scandinavian cold. You look around at the sleeping figures. Your father, the chieftain, sleeps in the most honoured spot, closest to the fire. Your mother is beside him, her face calm in the dim light. Your brothers, sisters, cousins, and a few thralls, slaves captured in a raid last season, are scattered along the benches, a tangled mass of limbs and furs. It's a peaceful scene, a fragile truce before the chaos of the day begins. You swing your legs over the edge of the platform, your bare feet meeting the cold, hard-packed earth of the floor. It's time to work. Your first task of the day, like every day, is to tend to the fire. The hearth is the lifeblood of the Longhouse, and letting it die completely is not just an inconvenience. It's a sign of laziness, a bad omen that invites the cold spirits of the wilderness into your home. You carefully push aside the ash from last night, revealing a small, precious core of glowing red embers. You blow on them gently, your breath a soft prayer to the gods of warmth and survival. The embers brighten. You add a handful of dry kindling, twigs and wood shavings you collected yesterday, and watch as a small, hesitant flame licks to life. You feed it larger pieces of wood, coaxing it, nurturing it, until the fire is once again a crackling, breathing creature in the centre of the hall. The smoke, thick and pungent, billows up toward the roof, stinging your eyes. There is no chimney, only a hole in the ceiling that does a mediocre job of ventilation. On a calm day, the smoke hangs in the air like a thick fog, coating every surface and every lung with a fine layer of soot. You've been breathing this air your whole life. You don't know any different. A persistent cough is just a normal part of winter. It's the Viking version of seasonal allergies, only with more phlegm and a much higher chance of leading to a dramatic, poetic death. As the fire grows, the Longhouse slowly awakens. The women are the first to rise, their movements quiet and efficient. They stir the contents of a large iron cauldron that hangs over the fire, preparing the morning meal. It's a simple affair, usually a thick porridge of barley or oats, what they call grotta. Sometimes, if you're lucky, there might be a few dried berries or a dollop of honey to sweeten it. The smell of the cooking grains begins to mix with the wood smoke, a scent that is the very definition of home. The men and children begin to stir, their sleepy groans and coughs adding to the morning chorus. There is no morning routine as you might know it. You don't brush your teeth. You might rinse your face with a basin of icy water, a bracing and deeply unpleasant experience that feels less like hygiene and more like a personal challenge from the gods of winter. Personal hygiene is practical, not luxurious. You comb your hair with a carved bone comb. The Vikings were surprisingly meticulous about their hair and beards, and you straighten your tunic. That's it. You are ready for the day. Your stomach rumbles. The porridge is ready. Breakfast is a communal affair, eaten sitting on the edge of the sleeping platforms that now serve as benches. You are given a simple wooden bowl and a carved spoon. The porridge is hot, thick and bland, but it is filling. It is the fuel for a day of hard labour. You eat quickly, the only sounds being the scrape of spoons against wood and the crackle of the fire. As you eat, your father begins to speak, his voice a low rumble that fills the hall. He outlines the day's tasks. Your older brothers will be going with him to hunt in the nearby forest. There are reports of a large elk, and its meat would be a welcome addition to the winter stores. Your mother and the other women will spend the day weaving and mending clothes. The loom, a tall, vertical frame, stands in the corner of the longhouse, a silent testament to the endless work of turning raw wool into warm tunics. Your younger sisters will be sent to gather more firewood and to check the snares for rabbits. And you? Your task today is to help repair the turf roof. Now, a section has come loose in the recent rains, and a cold, damp spot has appeared above your uncle's sleeping bench. He's been complaining about it for a week, and your father has finally had enough of his whining. It seems passive aggression is a timeless art form. After the meal, the longhouse empties as everyone goes to their tasks. You head outside into the grey morning light. The air is cold and clean, a welcome relief after the smoke-filled hall. The longhouse sits in a small clearing, surrounded by a low wooden fence. A few other buildings, a small storehouse, a smithy, a pen for the livestock, are scattered nearby. In the distance you can see the dark, brooding line of the forest and the grey, choppy waters of the fjord. It is a beautiful, wild and unforgiving landscape. You find the tools you need, a wooden ladder, a small iron shovel, and a few empty sacks. You then head to the pasture where a pile of fresh turf, cut from the earth last summer, is waiting. The turf is heavy, damp, and smells of rich soil. You load it into the sacks, your muscles already protesting. You are not a warrior, not a raider. You are a builder, a mender, a keeper of the home. It is not glorious work, but it is essential. Without a sound roof, the Longhouse, and everyone in it, would not survive the winter. The sagas may not sing of the boy who patched the roof, but without him, there would be no sagas to sing. Your contribution is silent, but it is the foundation upon which all the great deeds are built. You sling a heavy sack over your shoulder and begin the slow, steady work of keeping your world together, one square of earth at a time. Climbing onto the roof of the Longhouse is like ascending a small grassy hill. The turf is thick and spongy under your feet, a living blanket of earth and roots. From up here you can see the entire settlement, a small pocket of order carved out of the wilderness. You can see your brothers, armed with bows and spears, disappearing into the dark woods. You can see your sisters, their colourful tunics bright against the green landscape, heading toward the riverbank. You see the smoke from the smithy, where the blacksmith is already at his forge, the rhythmic clang of his hammer echoing faintly in the cool air. The work is hard and dirty. You must first remove the old waterlogged turf from the damaged section of the roof. It's a heavy, sodden mess, and you have to be careful not to create a bigger hole. You then lay down a fresh layer of birch bark, a natural waterproofing that is the unsung hero of Viking architecture. Finally, you carefully place the new blocks of turf on top, fitting them together like pieces of a puzzle. The wind is stronger up here, a constant cold pressure that pushes against you. You have to move carefully, your footing precarious on the curved slope of the roof. Your uncle comes out to supervise, shouting instructions that are mostly unhelpful. "A little to the left. No, the other left," he yells, while standing comfortably on the ground. You ignore him, focusing on your work. This is a common dynamic in a large communal family. Everyone has an opinion, and most of them are wrong. It's a bit like a modern group project, except with more mud and a higher chance of falling off a roof. As you work, you can hear the sounds of the Longhouse below you, the rhythmic thump of the loom as your mother weaves, the low murmur of the women's voices, the occasional bleat of a goat. The Longhouse is not just a building. It is a living thing, with its own sounds, its own rhythms, its own breath. And you are a part of it, tending to its skin, keeping it safe and warm. By midday, the patch is finished. The roof is sound once more. You climb down, your clothes covered in mud, your hands raw, but with a deep sense of satisfaction. You have done your part. The Longhouse is secure. The midday meal is a simple affair, eaten quickly before returning to your chores. It's more of the same. Porridge, perhaps with a piece of hard, dry flatbread. But this time, there is a treat. A passing trader has exchanged a small barrel of salted herring for a new iron axe head, and everyone gets a small piece of the salty, oily fish. It's a welcome burst of flavour in a world of blandness. You eat, listening to the conversations around you. Your mother is discussing the pattern of a new tunic she is weaving. The blacksmith is complaining about the poor quality of the local iron ore. Your uncle is still talking about the roof, now taking full credit for your work. After the meal, your afternoon task is to check the animal pens. The livestock, a few cows, a handful of sheep, the aforementioned goat, and a flock of chickens, are the family's wealth. They provide milk, wool, eggs, and on special occasions, meat. Keeping them healthy and secure is a vital task. You mend a section of the wattle fence that has come loose, reweaving the flexible branches together. You haul fresh water for the animals and spread new straw in their enclosures. The goat, a creature possessed by a spirit of pure chaos, tries to eat your tunic. You push it away. It stares at you with its strange rectangular pupils, chewing thoughtfully, as if plotting its revenge. While you work, you notice a ship on the fjord. It's not a longship, not a war vessel, but a nar, a wider, sturdier trading ship. Its single square sail is a bright patch of colour against the grey water. The arrival of a trader is always a cause for excitement. It means news from the outside world, exotic goods, and a break from the monotony of daily life. You watch as the ship draws closer, its crew skillfully navigating the treacherous currents. You wonder what they bring. Spices from the south, furs from the north, or just more salted herring. The men of the settlement, including your father and brothers, who have now returned from the hunt, empty-handed, much to everyone's disappointment, head down to the small wooden pier to greet the traders. You follow, your work forgotten for the moment. The traders are from a settlement a few days' sail down the coast. They bring iron tools, pottery, and a barrel of precious salt. In exchange, they want wool and walrus ivory. Your father begins the long, slow process of negotiation, a ritual of haggling, posturing, and shared mugs of ale. It will likely take hours. You stand at the edge of the group, a silent observer, soaking in the sights and sounds of this brief connection to the wider world. As evening deepens, the longhouse begins to fill up again. The traders have been invited to stay for the night, and a special meal is being prepared in their honour. The failed hunt means there is no fresh elk, but your mother has decided to slaughter one of the older sheep. It's a rare treat, and the mood in the longhouse is festive. The air is thick with the smell of roasting mutton, sizzling on a long iron spit over the fire. You are put to work turning the spits, a hot, greasy, and incredibly important job. Your face is flushed from the heat, and your arms ache from the constant slow rotation, but the aroma of the cooking meat makes your stomach rumble with anticipation. The fat drips and hisses into the flames, sending up little bursts of fragrant smoke that mingle with the ever-present haze near the roof. This single task, turning meat over a fire, feels ancient and essential, a direct link to the countless ancestors who sat just as you are, watching, waiting, and hoping they don't burn dinner. The women bring out the best wooden platters and drinking horns, some of which are tipped with polished silver. The men gather around the fire, their voices loud and boastful, their beards glistening with ale. The traders share stories of their travels, of storms on the open sea that threaten to splinter their ship, of trading walrus ivory for Frankish wine, of strange lands and even stranger people. You listen, mesmerized, trying to picture the world they describe. Their stories are windows into a life you can only dream of, a world of adventure, danger, and endless possibility. A skald, a travelling poet who has been staying with your family for the past week, pulls out his talharpa, a small four-stringed lyre. He begins to play, his voice a low chanting drone that weaves a tale of gods and giants, of Odin's quest for wisdom and Thor's battles with the frost giants of Jotunheimer. His words are hypnotic, and the entire hall falls silent, captivated by the ancient rhythm of the saga. The feast is a loud, chaotic, and joyous affair. The mutton is carved into thick, greasy chunks and eaten with your hands from a shared platter. There are no forks, only your personal knife, your siax, which you use for everything from cutting meat to cleaning your fingernails. You drink ale from a shared horn, wiping the rim before passing it down the bench to your brother. The skald's song fills the hall, his words painting vivid pictures in the smoky air. Your father and the head trader seal their deal with a toast, their horns clashing together with a dull, satisfying thud. For a few hours, the Longhouse is not just a home, it is a centre of commerce, culture and community. It is a microcosm of the Viking world, a place of fierce loyalties, loud boasts, and the simple, profound joy of a shared meal and a good story. As the night wears on, the stories become wilder, the laughter louder. You sit on the edge of the circle, a quiet participant in the celebration, feeling a deep sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than yourself. This is your family, your clan, your world. And tonight it is a good world. It is a world worth fighting for, worth building, worth mending a roof for. It is a world that, for all its hardships, feels like home. The feast is over. The traders, full of mutton and ale, have settled onto their sleeping benches, their deep rumbling snores already adding a new rhythm to the night. The skald has put away his lyre, and is now asleep, his head resting on his instrument case. The fire has burned down to a warm, glowing bed of embers, casting a soft red light on the sleeping forms around the hall. The women clear away the remnants of the meal, their movements slow and weary in the dim light. It is time for sleep. You find your spot on the platform, the familiar scent of straw and wool a comforting presence. You pull a thick fur pelt over you, a wolf skin from a hunt 2 winters ago. Its weight a welcome warmth against the night's encroaching chill. The longhouse settles into a new kind of silence, the quiet hum of a sleeping household. The only sounds are the soft crackle of the embers, the gentle sigh of the wind as it pushes against the turf walls, and the deep, rhythmic breathing of the 30 souls who now share this space with you. You lie in the darkness, your mind still buzzing with the stories of the traders, the song of the skald. You think of the world beyond your small settlement, of the vast unknown seas and the distant lands where men trade silver for spices. You think of the giants and gods the skald sang about, of the great ash tree Yggdrasil that holds the 9 worlds together. Your own world, this long, smoky hall, feels very small in comparison, but also intensely real, intensely safe. You think of the roof you mended, the solid timber walls around you, the warm fire in the centre of the hall. This is your world, and it is a good one. It is a world of hard work, of simple pleasures, of shared stories and communal strength. It is a world where you are never truly alone, for better or for worse. You close your eyes, the sounds of the sleeping longhouse a gentle lullaby. You drift off to sleep, not dreaming of grand adventures or heroic battles, but of the simple, reassuring rhythm of another day, lived and survived in the heart of the Viking world. In the end, this is what it means to be a Viking. It's not just about raiding and sailing, about axes and longships. It is about this, the quiet, unglamorous, and deeply communal work of survival. It's about mending roofs, tending fires, weaving wool, and sharing stories in a long, smoky hall that is both a home and a fortress against the encroaching darkness. It is about finding warmth and community in a cold, hard world where the gods are fickle and the winters are long. And as you sleep, surrounded by the breath of your kin, you know that tomorrow you will wake up and do it all over again. Because the saga of your people is not just written in the blood of their enemies or the runes on a standing stone. It is written in the smoke of their hearths, in the wool of their looms, and in the quiet, steady rhythm of their daily lives. It is a story of endurance, a story of belonging, a story that will be told around this fire for generations to come. And you, the boy who mended the roof, you are a vital, silent, and essential part of it. Have you ever wondered what it takes to bottle starlight? to take something as mundane as sand and turn it into a vessel of pure, liquid light. Today, we're not just looking at history, we're stepping into the fire. We're going to explore the brutal, sweaty, and surprisingly beautiful world of Roman glassmaking, an industry built on secret recipes, dangerous furnaces, and a whole lot of lung power. It was an art form that combined backbreaking labour with the most delicate touch, a strange alchemy of earth, air, and fire. The air is thick with smoke, the heat is a physical presence, and the year is 79 AD. You're an apprentice in a glass workshop in the bustling city of Pompeii, and your day is just beginning. The sun has barely kissed the peak of Mount Vesuvius, but the workshop is already a hive of activity. The air, cool and fresh just moments ago, is already growing heavy with the smells of wood smoke, hot metal, and something else. A dry, dusty scent that clings to the back of your throat. This is the smell of your trade, the perfume of creation. You are an apprentice, a lowly tiro, and your first job of the day is always the same, fetching the ingredients. It's not a glamorous task, but Lucius, your master, insists that every apprentice learns the craft from the ground up, literally. You cannot shape the glass, he is fond of saying, if you do not respect the sand. So you and another boy, Marcus, haul the heavy woven sacks from the storeroom. The first ingredient is the soul of the glass, silica. This isn't just any sand scooped from a beach. This is special sand, hauled all the way from the banks of the Volturnus River, known for its purity and fine white grains. You run a handful through your fingers. It feels cool and smooth, almost like powdered sugar. It's hard to believe this simple, unassuming dust will soon be transformed into something that glitters and shines, something fit for an emperor's table. But Lucius's recipe, a secret guarded more closely than a general's battle plans, demands the best. No expense is spared. After all, a reputation is built on consistency, not on cutting corners with cheap sand. Next comes the natron. This is the magic ingredient, the flux that will convince the stubborn silica to melt at a manageable temperature. The sacks of natron are even heavier, imported at great expense from the Wadi el Natron, a series of dried up lake beds in Egypt. It's a strange substance, a mix of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, basically ancient Roman baking soda. It comes in chunky crystalline blocks that have to be pounded into a fine powder with a heavy stone mortar and pestle. This is your job. Your arms are already aching, and the sun isn't even fully up. The fine, salty dust gets everywhere, in your nose, in your eyes, making you sneeze. It's a substance used to make glass, preserve fish, and even mummify the dead. You try not to think about that last part too much as you pound away, the rhythmic thud echoing in the small storeroom. Finally, you add the stabilizer, lime. A smaller amount usually derived from crushed and heated seashells. This is what will make the final glass durable and prevent it from dissolving in water. A rather important quality for a drinking cup, you have to admit. You carefully measure out the proportions, just as Lucius taught you. About 65% sand, 25% natron, and a few small scoops of lime. You mix it all together in a large clay trough, your hands stirring the white and grey powders into a homogeneous, uninspiring mixture. It looks like nothing. A pail of dust. Yet within this dull grey powder lies the potential for breathtaking beauty. Your arms ache, your face is coated in a fine layer of dust, and the real work hasn't even begun. Welcome to the glamorous world of Roman manufacturing. With the ingredients prepared, you approach the furnace. It is a massive, two-chambered beast of brick and clay, a roaring testament to Roman engineering. The lower chamber, the firebox, is a raging inferno fed by a constant supply of wood. The upper chamber, the melting pot, is where the magic happens. It is here that the raw ingredients are transformed into a glowing, viscous liquid. The heat is so intense that you have to shield your face with a wooden plank as you get close. It is a physical presence, a wall of shimmering air that seems to push against you, to suck the very moisture from your skin. Your master, Lucius, directs the process with a series of sharp, guttural commands. He has a deep, almost mystical understanding of the furnace, of its moods and its rhythms. He knows by the colour of the flames, by the roar of the draft when it is ready. Two of the senior artisans, their bodies lean and wiry from years of working in the heat, use long iron rods to push a large clay crucible, a massive, heavy pot, into the upper chamber. It is a dangerous, delicate dance. A single slip could send the crucible crashing to the floor, or worse, send a man stumbling into the flames. Once the crucible is in place, you and the other apprentices begin the slow, careful process of feeding it the raw ingredients. You use long-handled iron ladles to scoop the mixture of sand, natron, and lime into the crucible. Your movements quick and precise to minimize the loss of heat. The furnace roars its approval, the flames leaping and dancing as they begin to consume the raw materials. The process will take hours, a slow, patient alchemy. You will watch as the white powders and dull grains slowly, miraculously, transform into a single, glowing, honey-like mass of molten glass. It is a sight that never ceases to fill you with a sense of awe. You are not just melting sand. You are bottling starlight. The primary melt is a slow, patient process that consumes the better part of the day. For hours the furnace roars, its intense heat slowly breaking down the crystalline structure of the silica, transforming the raw, gritty ingredients into a single, homogeneous, molten mass. Your job during this time is one of constant, vigilant labour. You and the other apprentices work in shifts, feeding the firebox with a steady supply of wood. It is a hungry beast, this furnace, and its appetite is insatiable. You learn to read the fire, to know when it needs more fuel, when it needs more air. You learn the different qualities of wood, how oak burns hot and long, how pine burns fast and bright. It is a dirty, smoky and exhausting job, but it is also a vital one. The quality of the final glass depends on the consistency of the heat, and the consistency of the heat depends on you. You are the keeper of the flame, the guardian of the alchemical fire. You stack logs, your arms and back screaming in protest, your tunic soaked through with sweat. The smoke stings your eyes and lines your throat with soot. There are no holidays, no sick days for the furnace. Once lit, it can burn for weeks, even months at a time. Its constant ravenous hunger dictates the rhythm of your life. Sometimes, in the dead of night, as you heave another log into the firebox, you feel like you are not feeding a furnace, but a captive dragon. Its hot breath singes your eyebrows. Its roar fills your ears. It is a primal, terrifying, and strangely intimate relationship. You and this brick and clay monster, partners in a sweltering dance. As the hours wear on, the master artisans begin the process of refining the molten glass. They use long iron rods to skim impurities from the surface of the melt, a process that requires a steady hand and an almost supernatural tolerance for heat. They pull out gobs of scum, or glass gall, unmelted sand, bubbles, and other imperfections that float to the top like foam on a boiling pot. This is discarded, a necessary sacrifice for a perfect product. They pull out small samples of the glass, letting them cool on a stone slab, checking the colour, the clarity, the texture. It is a language of touch and sight, a silent conversation with the molten earth. Lucius, your master, is a perfectionist. He will not allow a batch to be used until it is perfect. Lucius squints at the cooling glass, his face illuminated by the glow of the furnace. He breaks a piece, examining the fracture lines. He holds it up to the light, looking for the telltale bubbles or streaks that betray an imperfect melt. These tiny bubbles, known as seeds, are the enemy. They are trapped gases, evidence of a rushed or uneven melt. Lucius can spot a seed from 10 paces away. His standards are absurdly high, and his disappointment is a palpable force in the workshop. He is a stern and demanding teacher, but you know that his standards are what make this workshop one of the most respected in the Roman world. He is not just making glass. He is crafting a reputation, one perfect batch at a time. He'll hold a sample up to your face. See this, Tiro, this streak. This is laziness. The fire was not hot enough an hour ago. Someone was sleeping at their post. He doesn't need to look at you, but you feel his gaze anyway. His methods are a strange mix of scientific observation and pure instinct. He'll taste the ash, feel the draft on his cheek, and declare that the batch needs another hour. He's like a grumpy, heat-resistant chef, tasting his soup. You don't know how he knows. It's a form of magic you have yet to learn. A deep connection to the materials and the process that seems almost godlike. Finally, after what feels like an eternity of feeding the fire and watching the masters skim and test, Lucius gives a sharp, satisfied nod. The melt is pure. The colour is consistent, a pale, natural blue-green, the signature shade of common Roman glass, a result of the iron impurities in the sand. There are no seeds, no streaks. It is a perfect liquid jewel, ready for the next stage. The work is a strange mix of brute force and delicate artistry. One moment you are hauling heavy logs, your muscles burning. The next you are watching in awe as a master artisan pulls a glowing thread of glass from the crucible. Its beauty as fragile as a spider's web. And you, the apprentice, are somewhere in the middle, covered in soot but filled with a growing sense of wonder. By late afternoon, the primary melt is complete. The furnace has done its work, and the crucible now holds a glowing, perfect mass of raw glass. But the work is far from over. The raw glass, now a substance with the consistency of thick, bubbling honey, is ready to be moved. The main furnace is too large and too hot for the delicate work of blowing and shaping. The crucible, still glowing with a terrifying incandescent heat, must be removed. This is the most dangerous part of the day, a moment of high drama and coordinated effort. The apprentices, including you, are tasked with clearing a path. Any stray tools, any dropped rags, any obstacle at all is kicked out of the way. A stumble now would be catastrophic. Lucius shouts the commands. Two of the strongest artisans, their faces wrapped in wet cloths to ward off the worst of the heat, approach the furnace. They wield massive iron tongs, nearly as long as they are tall. With practiced, synchronized movements, they grip the lip of the crucible. Horate, Lucius bellows. Lift. With a great collective grunt, they heave the massive pot, weighing hundreds of pounds, out of the upper chamber. For a moment, it hangs suspended in the air, a miniature sun of molten glass, radiating a wave of heat so intense it feels like your skin is cooking. The men's muscles strain, their knuckles white. Their movements are slow, deliberate, a terrifyingly graceful ballet. They carry the crucible across the workshop floor to a large, flat stone slab that has been prepared. With another command from Lucius, They carefully tip the crucible, and the molten glass pours out. It flows like lava, a thick, radiant river of light. It spreads across the stone, glowing with an inner fire, a captured piece of the sun, before it begins to cool. The brilliant orange fades to a cherry red, then to a dull glow, and finally it solidifies into thick, rough chunks of pale, translucent green-blue glass. This is cullet, the raw currency of your craft. These chunks can be sold to other workshops that lack a primary furnace, or they can be used here, in the second, smaller furnace, the glory hole. Once the cullet is cool enough to handle, which is still blisteringly hot by any normal standard, you and the other apprentices are given hammers. Your job is to break the large slabs into smaller, more manageable pieces. It is a satisfying sound, the sharp crack of the hammer against the cooling glass, a sound of potential, of a raw material ready to be transformed. The workshop now shifts its focus. The heavy, smoky work of the primary melt is done. Now the real magic begins. You watch as the master blowers approach the glory hole, their long, hollow iron pipes, the blow pipes, in hand. This is the part of the day you live for, the moment when sand and fire and human breath come together to create something beautiful, something eternal, something that will outlast you, your master, and even the Roman Empire itself. The glory hole is a different beast from the main furnace. While the primary furnace is a roaring industrial behemoth, the glory hole is a more refined instrument. It's a smaller, single-chambered oven, open at the front, designed for reheating and shaping. Its purpose isn't to melt, but to maintain, to keep the glass at that perfect workable temperature, the sweet spot between liquid and solid. This is where the artistry happens. The master glassblower, the Vitriarius, is the star of the show now. Today, that man is Servius, a wiry man with lungs of leather and the steady hands of a surgeon. He selects a blowpipe, a simple iron tube about 4 feet long, and checks its temperature. Everything is about temperature. Too cold, and the glass won't stick. Too hot, and it will be too runny. Servius approaches the glory hole, where chunks of your freshly made cullet have been placed to be remelted into a working pool of glass. He dips the end of his blowpipe into the incandescent mass. With a practiced rotating motion, he gathers a small blob of molten glass on the end. This initial blob is called the gather. He pulls it out of the furnace, a glowing teardrop of liquid fire dripping from the end of his pipe. It looks deceptively small, but this is the seed of a future vessel. The workshop quiets down. The shouting and the heavy labour of the melt give way to a focused silence, punctuated only by the soft roar of the glory hole. He lifts the pipe to his lips. This is the moment of creation. He puffs his cheeks and gives a gentle, steady breath. You watch, mesmerised, as the glowing blob at the end of the pipe begins to inflate. A small bubble appears, a hollow space created by nothing more than human breath. It's a miracle. One moment, it's a solid lump of melted sand. The next, it's a vessel, holding air, holding potential. He doesn't blow hard. It's controlled, precise exhalation. Too much air, and the thin walls of the glass will burst. Too little, and it won't form properly. This initial bubble is called the parison. Servius lowers the pipe and lets the parison hang, using gravity to elongate it slightly, all while continuously rotating the pipe to keep the shape symmetrical. The glass is a living thing, constantly in motion, and if he stops turning for even a second, it will droop and sag, becoming a lopsided failure. You watch his every move, trying to commit it to memory. The way he cradles the heavy iron pipe, the constant, almost unconscious rotation, the way he gauges the temperature by the colour of the glow. This is what you aspire to. Not the back-breaking labour of the furnace, but this. This dance with light and heat. You've been allowed to try it once or twice, with a small pipe and a tiny gather of glass. Your attempts were clumsy, wobbly failures that ended up in the scrap pile. Your breath was unsteady. Your hands shook. It takes years, decades to develop the skill Servius possesses. For now, your job is to watch, to learn, and to stay out of the way. And to fetch the tools he calls for with a sharp clap of his hands. The parison, the initial bubble, is just the beginning. Now it must be shaped. The glass cools rapidly in the open air, going from pliable to rigid in a matter of seconds. The entire process of shaping is a frantic race against time, a constant cycle of heating and working. Servius, still rotating the blowpipe, carries the glowing parison over to the bunk, a special bench where the glassblower sits. At his feet, an apprentice. Today, it's you, is ready with the tools. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. A subtle gesture, a flick of his eyes, is your command. First, he calls for the jacks. These are large, pincer-like tools, not for cutting, but for shaping. He rests the blowpipe across the arms of the bench, and while still rotating it with one hand, uses the jacks in the other to gently squeeze and define a neck on the bubble. His movements are fluid and economical. There is no wasted motion. The hot glass yields to the cool iron of the jacks like clay. He's not just making a shape, he's coaxing it out of the molten material. After only a few seconds, the glass has cooled too much to be worked further. It has lost its bright orange glow, fading to a dull red. Ad fornicum, he grunts. To the furnace. He quickly takes the piece back to the glory hole, inserting it just long enough to reheat the surface, until it glows brightly again, restoring its plasticity. This process is repeated dozens of times for a single vessel. Heat, shape, repeat. Next, he might call for a wooden block, a hollowed-out piece of pear wood that has been soaked in water. He rolls the hot glass in the wooden mould, the water creating a cushion of steam that prevents the glass from sticking while helping to smooth and round the shape. The workshop fills with the sound of hissing steam and the faint, sweet smell of scorched wood. Then it's back to the bench. Perhaps he wants to flatten the bottom so it can stand. He gestures for the habucellas, a paddle-like tool. You hand it to him, and he gently taps the base of the spinning vessel, creating a perfectly flat surface. It's a mesmerizing, high-stakes performance. One moment of inattention, one tool handed over too slowly, one slip of the hand, and the delicate, beautiful object will shatter or deform into a worthless lump. The floor around the bench is littered with the ghosts of failed attempts. Shards of glass that cooled too quickly or were shaped imperfectly. Lucius calls it the floor of learning. Every piece of broken glass is a lesson, and an expensive one at that. You watch Servius, a master at the peak of his craft, and you realise that glass blowing is less a job and more a conversation with a very hot, very stubborn, and very beautiful material. A simple cup or bottle is one thing, but the wealthy patrons of Pompeii demand more. They want colour, they want decoration, they want flair. Roman glass is famous for its intricate designs, and this is where another level of artistry comes into play. While Servius is working the main body of a jug, another master artisan, Gaius, is preparing the coloured glass for the handle and decoration. He works at a smaller furnace, melting down special collate that has been coloured with metal oxides, copper for a deep ruby red, cobalt for a brilliant blue, manganese for a royal purple. These are precious, expensive materials. A single mistake with a coloured trail can ruin the entire piece. Once Servius has the main body of the jug shaped to his satisfaction, he gives a nod to Gaius. The timing has to be perfect. Gaius uses a smaller iron rod, a pontil, to gather a thin thread of molten blue glass. He approaches Servius, and they begin a delicate dance. As Servius rotates the jug, Gaius expertly lays the thin thread of blue glass onto its surface, creating a perfect spiral pattern around the vessel's neck. It's an act of incredible coordination. Then, using a small pair of pincers, Gaius pulls and pinches the still soft blue thread, creating a wavy feathered pattern. The whole operation takes less than a minute before the glass cools too much. Now for the handle. Gaius gathers a larger blob of the blue glass. Servius holds the jug horizontally. Gaius attaches the blob to the shoulder of the jug, then pulls it upwards and arcs it over, attaching their other end to the lip. With a final, artistic flourish, he uses his tools to add a decorative curl, where the handle meets the body. The piece is almost finished, but it's still attached to the long, hollow blowpipe. It needs to be transferred to a solid rod, the pontil, so the lip can be finished. Another assistant brings a pontil with a small gather of hot glass and carefully attaches it to the base of the jug. A sharp tap with a metal tool near the blowpipe, and the jug cracks cleanly off, transferred from the blowpipe to the pontil. Now the lip, the opening of the jug, is exposed and can be reheated and shaped with tools to create a smooth, perfect rim. This final step leaves a telltale mark. When the finished piece is eventually broken off the pontil, it will leave a rough, circular scar on the bottom, the pontil mark. It is the belly button of hand-blown glass, an authentic sign that it was not made in a mould, but shaped by human hands. For you, the apprentice, this whole process is a dizzying display of skill. You are still struggling to make a simple, lopsided bubble, and these men are casually painting with fire and creating functional art that will be sold for a small fortune in the forum. It is humbling and deeply inspiring. The final act of creation is the quietest, and in some ways the most critical. The beautifully shaped and decorated jug, now broken free from the pontil, is still incredibly hot and under immense internal stress. If it were left to cool in the open air, the outer surface would shrink faster than the inner surface, and the entire piece would shatter into 1,000 pieces. It would literally explode. All that work, all that artistry, turned to dust by a simple law of physics. To prevent this, the piece must be annealed. This is the process of cooling the glass slowly, over a long period, to relieve those internal stresses. At the side of the workshop stands the annealing oven. It's another brick structure, much gentler than the main furnace or the glory hole. It is kept at a steady, moderate heat, just below the glass's deformation point. An apprentice, often the youngest, has the solemn duty of being the putter away. Using a long forked rod, he carefully carries the finished piece, still radiating a dull red glow, from the glassblower's bench to the annealing oven. He places it gently inside, alongside the other creations of the day. An array of cups, bowls, flasks and jugs, all glowing softly in the dim chamber, like a collection of captured spirits. Once the day's blowing is done, the opening to the annealing oven is sealed. The fire beneath it is allowed to die out slowly. The pieces will sit inside for hours, sometimes even a full day, bathing in the slowly diminishing heat. This is a time of patience. There is no way to rush it. It's a final gentle stage in the glass's journey from a violent, molten state to a stable, solid form. The workshop grows quiet. The roar of the main furnace has been tamed. The glory hole is extinguished. The only sounds are the sweeping of floors and the clinking of tools being cleaned and put away. The air, thick with heat and smoke just hours before, begins to cool. The next morning, it is time for the reveal. Opening the annealing oven is like opening a treasure chest. The pieces are now cool to the touch. You reach in and pick one up. A simple blue-green beaker. It feels impossibly light, yet strong. You hold it up to the morning light filtering into the workshop. The light passes through it, casting a coloured shadow on the dusty floor. It is no longer sand. It is no longer a collection of powders. It is something new, something that holds the light. You can see the slight imperfections, the tiny bubbles, the pontil mark on the bottom. These are not flaws. They are the fingerprints of its creation, the story of the fire and breath that gave it life. You have witnessed a form of magic, a transformation as profound as any. You helped make this, and you know, with a certainty that fills your tired body with pride, that this simple object might just last forever. It will outlive you and Lucius, and perhaps even Rome itself. A fragile, beautiful message in a bottle from a world of fire and sweat. Have you ever played a video game or watched a movie and thought, you know, being a shadowy medieval assassin seems like a pretty cool gig? You get the cool hooded robes, the wrist blades, the rooftop parkour, and a secret brotherhood fighting for a noble cause. It's a compelling fantasy, and that's all it is. The reality of being a hired killer in the Middle Ages was less about sleek acrobatics and more about dysentery, crippling anxiety, and the pervasive smell of unwashed humanity. If you enjoy peeling back the layers of romanticized history to reveal the grimy, uncomfortable, and often absurd truth beneath, consider showing your support for the channel. Every bit of engagement helps us keep digging. Forget the gleaming cities and the noble quests. We're going to a world of mud, paranoia, and cheap ale. The year is 1253. The place is northern France, and you're about to accept a new job. The contract, as you call it, doesn't arrive by a raven bearing a scroll sealed with a skull in black wax. It arrives in the form of a fat man named Thomas, a steward to a local lord, whose expensive-looking but food-stained tunic does little to hide his nervousness. The meeting place isn't a shadowy crypt. It's the back corner of a tavern that smells of sour wine, wet dogs, and despair. You sit on a rough-hewn bench that wobbles precariously, a mug of ale in your hand that tastes mostly of the river it was brewed with. You are not a member of a sacred order. You're a man whose only real skill, learned during a miserable stint in some forgotten war, is the ability to move quietly and end things. You're not dressed in flowing robes. You wear practical dirt-coloured wool and worn leather, the kind of outfit that makes you utterly forgettable, which is precisely the point. Your hood is up not for dramatic effect, but because the tavern is draughty, and you'd rather not have anyone remember your face. Thomas the steward leans in, his breath a foul mix of garlic and fear. He doesn't use words like assassinate or eliminate. The language is one of nods, glances, and euphemisms. He talks about a problem his master is having, a dispute over a certain tract of forest land with a neighbouring baron, a man named Renaud. This problem, he explains, is proving stubborn. This isn't a battle for the soul of the kingdom. It's not about freeing the oppressed or stopping a tyrant. It's about trees, and the ego of one rich man who wants the trees that another rich man owns. This is the reality of your work. You are not an agent of justice. You are a human hammer, used to resolve petty squabbles between petty men who can't be bothered to handle their own affairs. Thomas slides a small, greasy leather pouch across the table. It doesn't clink with the satisfying sound of gold. It makes a dull, muted thud. You don't open it here. That would be foolish. You just feel its weight, enough silver to keep you from starving for a season. Maybe. You listen as he gives you the details. The name of the castle, the target. He knows very little about the man's habits, offering only useless platitudes like he's a cautious man and his guards are loyal. It's the medieval equivalent of a modern job posting that lists fast-paced environment as a perk. It tells you nothing useful. You ask no questions. Questions imply doubt, and doubt spooks men like Thomas. You just give a slow, deliberate nod. That's it. The deal is struck. He gets up, sweating despite the chill, and scurries out of the tavern, leaving you alone with your lukewarm ale and the grim knowledge that you've just agreed to kill a man you've never met over a disagreement about lumber. Your next step is intelligence gathering. This is not a sophisticated process involving maps, informants, and secret codes. This is you, spending the next week of your life living on the fringes of the target's town, trying to look like you belong there, which is to say, looking miserable and destitute. You trade your decent travelling clothes for the rags of a beggar, rubbing dirt into your face and hair to complete the look. Glamorous it is not. You find a spot near the main gate of Baron Renault's castle, huddling against the cold stone, your hand outstretched. The goal isn't to collect coins, it's to collect information. You become part of the scenery, invisible to the very people you're watching. You listen. You listen to the guards complaining about their pay, their sergeant, and the quality of the bread. You listen to the servant girls gossiping about the Baron's temper and his fondness for spiced wine. You listen to the merchants grumbling about the road tolls. Every scrap is a tiny piece of a puzzle you have to assemble in your mind. There's no single, reliable source. It's all rumours and hearsay. One guard says the Baron inspects the armoury every morning. A stable boy insists he spends his mornings with his horses. A kitchen maid swears he doesn't leave his chambers until midday. It's the medieval version of trying to find a straight answer on the internet. Everyone has an opinion, and most of them are wrong. Days are spent in mind-numbing boredom, punctuated by moments of low-grade terror when a guard looks at you for a second too long. You learn the rhythm of the castle through sheer painful observation. You learn which guard posts are manned by the alert and which are manned by the half asleep. You see the baker's cart go in at dawn and the refuse cart go out at dusk. You note the crumbling section of the outer wall near the old watchtower, the one covered in ivy. You are not looking for a dramatic, high-security entrance. You are looking for laziness, for neglect, for the one weak link in the chain, because that is the only way in. Your diet consists of stale bread you manage to beg for and water you scoop from a public well that is likely teeming with more life than the town market. At night, you don't sleep in a comfortable inn. You find shelter in a ruined cowshed on the edge of town, the smell of old manure your constant companion. The cold seeps deep into your bones. This is the reality of reconnaissance. It is not about clever disguises and charming conversations. It's about being cold, hungry, and ignored. After a week of this, you've pieced together a plausible routine for the Baron. He dines late, drinks heavily, and then dismisses his personal guards, keeping only 2 men posted outside his chamber door. It's a thin lid, but it's the only one you have. With a plan, however flimsy, beginning to form, you turn your attention to your tools. Your arsenal would be laughable to the heroes of song and story. There is no master swordsmith forging you a legendary blade. There is just you in the dim light of your cowshed, carefully tending to your meagre equipment. Your primary weapon is a dagger. Not a fancy, jewel-encrusted affair, but a brutally practical tool of iron, with a blade about the length of your forearm and a simple wooden handle wrapped in leather for grip. It's called a bollock dagger, named for the two charmingly round lobes on the hilt. It's a crude, ugly, but effective weapon, designed for one purpose: punching through cloth and leather to find the soft parts of a man. You spend an entire evening sharpening it on a whetstone you carry wrapped in a rag. The scrape of steel on stone is a familiar, meditative sound in the quiet of the night. You test the edge with your thumb, feeling for the slightest imperfection. A dull blade can catch on clothing, or worse, bone. It has to be as sharp as a razor. This simple, repetitive task is your ritual. It's the only part of this process you can fully control. You also have a smaller knife tucked into your boot, a last resort. And a garrote, a simple length of waxed cord with wooden toggles at each end. It's silent, but it requires getting much closer than you'd like. As for special equipment, you have none. There are no grappling hooks, no smoke bombs, no vials of acid. Your most important piece of gear is a coil of sturdy rope, with a small three-pronged grappling hook tied to the end. Not purchased from a secret guild, but stolen from a fishing boat a few years back. Your clothing is your camouflage. Dark, earth-toned wool that makes little noise and won't stand out in the dark. No polished leather, no metal buckles that might catch the moonlight. You are a creature of shadow, and your appearance must reflect that. You look less like a deadly assassin and more like a man who has had a very, very bad year. You briefly considered poison. You even visited the local hedge witch, an old woman living in a hovel who sold you a pouch of dried leaves she claimed were nightshade. But poison is a rich man's weapon, and more importantly, it's unreliable. You don't know the Baron's constitution. Will it kill him? Will it just give him a stomachache and make him angry? And how do you administer it? Bribe a cook? That's another person who knows your face. Another loose end. No, the dagger is more honest. It's messy, but it's certain. You pack your meagre tools. The weight of them a cold comfort. They are not the weapons of a hero, but the tools of a trade. Your grim, squalid trade. The night of the attempt is moonless and cold, a damp chill in the air that promises rain. This is good. The darkness is your ally, and any rain will help cover the sound of your movements. You approach the castle not from the main gate, but from the rear, where the land slopes down towards the murky, stinking moat. You move slowly, a shadow among shadows, your feet making no sound on the damp earth. You reach the spot you identified days ago, the crumbling section of the outer wall near the derelict watchtower. It's about a 20-foot climb, not impossible, but not easy, especially not in the dark, with the weight of your rope and your own fear pulling you down. You uncoil your rope. The grappling hook is your first major obstacle. Tossing it up onto the battlements without making a loud clank of metal on stone is a challenge in itself. Your first toss is short. The hook slides down the wall with a horrible scraping sound that makes your heart leap into your throat. You freeze, listening. Nothing. Only the wind. You take a deep breath, the air thick with the sewer-like smell of the moat, and try again. This time, the hook catches. You pull on it, testing its hold. It seems firm. Now comes the hard part. The climb is a grueling, clumsy ordeal. This isn't the effortless ascent you see in stories. Your fingers, numb with cold, struggle to find purchase in the cracks between the stones. The wall is slick with moss and damp. Your boots slip. A loose stone gives way under your foot and tumbles down, splashing into the moat with a sound that seems as loud as a thunderclap. You press yourself flat against the wall, every muscle screaming, your breath held tight in your chest. You wait for the sound of an alarm, a shout from a guard. Again, nothing. The guards on this side are either asleep, drunk, or simply don't care. Medieval workplace apathy is your greatest asset. Finally, gasping for breath, you haul yourself over the parapet. You are inside the outer bailey. You crouch in the shadows, your heart hammering against your ribs. The castle yard is quiet, save for the distant sound of a blacksmith's hammer from the forge, likely a man working through the night. You have to cross the open yard to get to the keep itself. You move in short bursts, from the shadow of a water barrel to the darkness of a doorway, your eyes constantly scanning the lit windows above. It feels like an eternity, but you finally reach the base of the main keep. You got past the first line of defense. Now you just have to deal with the other 10 or so. You're inside the keep, having slipped through an unguarded door to the kitchens, which now lie silent and dark. But you are not free to roam. You must wait. Your intelligence, a patchwork of overheard whispers, suggests the Baron retires late. That means you have hours to kill, trapped inside the stone belly of the beast. You find your hiding place, a small, cramped storeroom off the main hall, filled with sacks of flour and barrels of salted fish. The air is thick with the smells of grain, salt, and the ever-present odour of mice. You squeeze yourself into a narrow gap between a stack of barrels and the cold stone wall, and you wait. This is the part of the job that no one ever tells you about. The sheer soul-crushing boredom. You can't sleep. You can't move. You can only sit in the dark, every sense on high alert. Every distant footstep, every creak of a floorboard, every cough from a sleepy guard sends a fresh jolt of adrenaline through you. You listen to the sounds of the castle as it prepares for sleep, the clatter of plates being cleared, the muffled shouts of servants, the laughter from the great hall as the Baron and his men finish their meal. It all feels impossibly distant, a world away from your dusty, fish-scented darkness. Hours crawl by. Your legs cramp. The cold of the stone floor seeps into you, a deep, unshakable chill. You have to fight the urge to shift, to stretch, to do anything but remain perfectly still. Your mind starts to play tricks on you. The rustle of a mouse sounds like the whisper of a guard. The sigh of the wind sounds like your name. Paranoia is a physical thing, a prickling on your skin, a tightness in your gut. You have to go to the bathroom. This is, perhaps, the single most unglamorous and pressing reality of infiltration that the stories conveniently omit. There is no elegant solution. You simply have to hold it. A uniquely medieval form of torture. Finally, you hear it. The heavy, shuffling footsteps and loud, drunken voices of the Baron and his retinue moving from the hall towards the residential wing. You hear the Baron's booming laugh, the scraping of chairs, the clanging of a door. Then, gradually, the sounds die down. The castle settles into a deeper quiet, the quiet of midnight. It's time. You slowly, painfully unfold yourself from your hiding spot. Your limbs are stiff and unresponsive. You take a moment to shake the feeling back into them, your movements small and silent. Armed with your dagger and a stomach full of anxiety, you slip out of the storeroom and into the darkened corridors of the keep. You move through the sleeping castle like a ghost. The flickering light of a few distant torches casts long, dancing shadows that seem to leap out at you. Every floorboard seems designed to creak under your weight. You flatten yourself into a doorway, as a lone guard walks his rounds, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He passes by without a glance, humming tunelessly to himself, his spear scraping against the stone floor. Your heart feels like a trapped bird beating against your ribs. You reach the upper level, the corridor leading to the Baron's private chambers. Just as the gossip suggested, 2 guards stand post outside a heavy oak door. They aren't standing at sharp attention. One is leaning against the wall, his eyes half closed. The other is sitting on a stool, idly picking at his fingernails with the tip of his own dagger. This is the moment of truth. You can't fight them both. The noise would bring the whole castle down upon you. You need a distraction. Your eyes scan the corridor. You see a decorative suit of armor standing in an alcove down the hall. It's a classic, almost a cliché. But in a world without more advanced options, the classics are all you have. You find a small, loose stone on the floor. Taking a deep breath, you toss it down the opposite end of the hall. It clatters loudly. The guards jump, startled. "What was that?" one mutters. "Probably just a rat," the other grumbles, but he gets up from his stool. They both peer into the darkness, spears held ready. It's the opening you need. While their attention is diverted, you dart across the corridor to the door, right next to the Baron's, the privy chamber. You slip inside. The smell is breathtakingly awful. This is the Baron's personal toilet, essentially a hole in the floor that opens to the outside. But it shares a wall with his bedchamber. You press your ear to the cold, damp stone. You can hear it, the sound of a man snoring, a deep, guttural, wine-fueled snore. He's asleep. He's alone. Now or never. The actual act is nothing like the clean, silent kills of legend. It is a clumsy, brutal, and horrifying affair. You ease the privy door open and slip back into the hall. The guards are still looking down the corridor, now arguing in whispers about whose turn it is to investigate. You glide to the Baron's door. There's no lock. Or rather, the lock is a heavy wooden bar on the inside. Of course. Panic sets in. Your entire plan hinged on an unlocked door. You see a small gap beneath it, a sliver of light. You get on your belly, the cold stone shocking through your clothes, and pull out your dagger. You slide the thin blade under the door, fumbling for the wooden bar. It's a desperate, insane move. Your dagger scrapes against the wood. The snoring from inside stops. You freeze. Silence. Then a groggy, irritated voice. "Who's there?" He thinks it's one of his guards. He grumbles, gets up, and you hear the heavy thud of the bar being lifted. The door creaks open. The Baron stands there, a large, fleshy man in a linen nightshirt, blinking sleep from his eyes. He sees you, a dark figure rising from the floor, and his face transforms from confusion to terror. There's no time for a cool one-liner. He opens his mouth to shout, and you lunge. It's not a graceful thrust. It's a desperate, stumbling charge. You slam into him, the impact driving you both back into the room. It's a struggle. He is strong, his hands grabbing at your face, your arms. You stab, but it's awkward. The dagger glances off a rib with a sickening crunch. He screams, a wet, gurgling sound. You pull the blade free and thrust again, and again. It is intimate and ugly, and it feels like an eternity. Finally, he goes limp, slumping to the floor in a growing pool of his own blood. The room smells of wine and death. There is no quiet satisfaction, no professional pride, only the frantic, high-pitched ringing of adrenaline in your ears and the overwhelming urge to be sick. You just struggled for your life with a man in his bedclothes. Outside, you hear the guards shouting. alerted by the noise. "My lord," one calls, rattling the door handle. There is no time. There is no dignified exit. There is only the escape. And there is no conveniently placed cart of hay to perform a leap of faith into. Your escape route is the one you just created. The privy. You scramble back into the small, foul-smelling room, ignoring the blood on your hands and the tremor in your limbs. The hole in the floor looks impossibly small, a black void leading down to the stinking moat below. Behind you, you hear the splintering crash as the guards break down the chamber door. You hear their horrified shouts as they discover the body. There is no other choice. You squeeze into the privy chute, the rough-cut stones scraping your back and shoulders. For a moment, you're stuck, wedged in the narrow passage. Panic claws at you. With a desperate heave, you push yourself through and fall. It's not a long drop, maybe 15 feet. But you land with a disgusting full-body splash into the filth of the moat. The cold, foul water closes over your head. It's a cesspool of kitchen grease, human waste, and stagnant water. The smell is gag-inducing. You fight your way to the surface, gasping, covered in a sludge that will cling to you for days. Bells begin to toll from the castle ramparts. The alarm is raised. Torches appear on the walls. Guards shouting and running. You are exposed. You swim, your waterlogged clothes weighing you down, paddling through the muck as quietly as you can, towards the far bank. You have to get out of the light. You crawl onto the muddy bank, a stinking, shivering creature of the night, and melt into the darkness of the surrounding woods. You don't look back. The escape is not a daring, heroic feat. It is a panicked, disgusting scramble for survival. You have succeeded in your mission, but you feel less like a master assassin and more like a drowned rat. You spend the next 2 days hiding in the forest, moving only at night. You are cold, wet, and haunted by the memory of the Baron's face. The smell of the moat clings to you like a shroud. You can't wash it off. You eat nothing. You drink from streams, hoping you don't get sick. Finally, you make your way to the rendezvous point, a ruined chapel on a lonely hill, miles from the town. It's the kind of place where only bad things happen. Thomas, the steward, is already there, pacing nervously among the crumbling stones. He sees you emerge from the trees, a filthy, gaunt spectre, and he visibly recoils from your smell. He doesn't ask for details. He doesn't want to know. "Is it done?" he asks, his voice barely a whisper. You just nod. There's no praise for your skill, no acknowledgement of the risk you took. This is a business transaction, and the service has been rendered. He tosses another small pouch at your feet. The final payment. It feels insultingly light. "My master is grateful," he lies. "Now, you will leave this part of the country. You will not return. You were never here." He doesn't wait for a reply. He turns and practically runs back towards the road, leaving you alone in the ruins. You pick up the pouch. The silver coins inside are cold, hard, and utterly devoid of any sense of victory. This is your reward. A handful of money that will soon be gone, spent on bread and cheap wine in some other town where no one knows your name. You have traded a man's life for this. As you stand there, the enormity of your situation settles in. You are not a hero. You are not a righteous warrior. You are a loose end. The Baron's family will be hunting for his killer, and your employer, the man who hired you, now has a very good reason to want you dead too. You are the only person who can connect him to the crime. Your life of paranoia is just beginning. This is your life now. A ghost drifting from one grimy town to the next. You can never stay in one place for too long. You can never trust anyone. Every friendly stranger might be a bounty hunter. Every knock on the door might be the city watch. The handful of silver you earned runs out, as it always does, and the gnawing hunger in your belly returns. You will have to find another tavern, another shady steward, another petty lord with a problem that needs solving. The work is all you know. Your skills are not transferable. There's not much of a career path for experienced lurker and part-time murderer. You sleep in barns and alleyways, always with one eye open, your hand never far from the hilt of your dagger. The faces of the men you've killed visit you in your dreams, not as terrifying monsters, but as they were, confused, frightened, and bleeding on the floor. There is no grand creed, no noble purpose to justify the things you've done. You fight for no cause but your own grim survival. This life doesn't end with a peaceful retirement in a hidden villa. It ends in a muddy ditch with a knife in your back, or at the end of a rope in a town square, your name and your story forgotten. The medieval assassin of fantasy is a powerful romantic figure, an agent of change, a master of his craft. The reality was a man rendered disposable by a brutal world. He was a tool, used and discarded by the powerful. His legacy was not freedom or justice, but fear. And his greatest skill was not in taking a life, but in simply surviving for one more day in a world that had no place for him. When we think of ancient Egypt, we picture mighty pharaohs, golden pyramids, and powerful gods with the heads of animals. But who wrote it all down? Who kept the receipts for an entire civilization? Today, we're not looking at the kings or the warriors. We're looking at the people who made the whole thing run, the scribes. We imagine them as wise, respected scholars, living a life of quiet contemplation. The truth, however, was a lot more complicated, involving decades of brutal schooling, mind-numbing bureaucracy, and a whole lot of reed chewing. So now, find that comfortable position. Let the weight of the day settle, and then let it go. Close your eyes if you wish, and allow the world around you to fade into the background. Your only task is to listen and to breathe. We are travelling back over 3,000 years. The air is hot and dry. The sun beats down from a flawless blue sky, and the great Nile River flows nearby like a ribbon of life. The year is 1279 BC. The reign of Ramesses the Great is in full swing, and you are a 10-year-old boy about to make a career choice, or rather, have it made for you. You are the son of a farmer. Your world is dictated by the rhythm of the Nile's inundation, the annual flood that deposits rich, black silt upon your family's plot of land. Your life, as it stands, is mapped out for you. You will follow in your father's footsteps, your back bent under the same sun, your hands calloused from the same wooden plough, your skin baked the same dark brown. You watch your father and older brothers come in from the fields at dusk, their bodies aching, caked in mud and sweat. It is a life of endless cyclical toil, a life respected for its necessity but devoid of comfort or status. It is all you know. But then, one day, a man from the temple arrives. He is a scribe. He is not like the men from your village. He is clean. His linen kilt is white and unsoiled. He carries no heavy tools, only a wooden pallet under his arm and a roll of papyrus. He doesn't squint in the sun. He stands in the shade of a sycamore tree, reading from his scroll as he directs the foreman overseeing the repair of an irrigation canal. He speaks with an air of authority, and even the foreman, a man who can break rocks with his bare hands, listens with deference. The scribe does not sweat. He does not toil. He simply knows things. That evening your father looks at you, his eyes thoughtful. He looks at your small, uncalloused hands. He has seen the scribe too. He has seen the future he does not want for you. You will not break your back in the mud, he says, his voice rough but determined. You will learn the sacred words. You will become a scribe. It is not a suggestion. It is a decree born of love, and a lifetime of aching muscles. He doesn't know the details, only the outcome. A scribe is exempt from manual labour. A scribe pays no taxes. A scribe eats well. To your father, it seems like a form of magic, a way to escape the fate that binds everyone he knows. You are filled with a mixture of fear and excitement. You are leaving the only life you've ever known to enter a world of mysterious symbols and quiet, clean men. Your father scrapes together what little he can. A few jars of beer, a basket of good bread, a small silver ring that was your mother's, as a gift for the master of the local scribe school. It is a bribe, plain and simple, an investment in your future. And so, clutching a small bundle with a change of clothes and a piece of flat stone to practice on, you walk with your father to the temple complex. You are about to enter the Edaba, the house of life, which sounds lovely and inspiring. You will soon learn it is anything but. The school is a dusty, noisy courtyard filled with boys of all ages, and it will be your personal prison for the next 12 years. The first day of scribe school is a brutal awakening. You are handed over to a master named Pentu, a stern, wiry man with cold eyes and a long, thin cane that he seems to hold as if it were an extension of his own arm. There is no gentle orientation, no welcoming speech. The ethos of the Edaba is simple, and is summarized by a common Egyptian proverb you will come to know well. A boy's ears are on his back. He listens when he is beaten. The school operates on a foundation of discipline, repetition, and institutionalized bullying. The older students, hardened by years of the same treatment, take great pleasure in tormenting the newcomers. Your meagre lunch is stolen. Your practice slate is accidentally broken. You're a small fish in a very harsh pond. The classroom is a section of the temple courtyard, shaded by a reed canopy that does little to stop the oppressive heat. You do not have a desk. You sit cross-legged on the hard-packed earth, your ostrakon, a shard of broken pottery or a flat piece of limestone, balanced on your lap. This is your notebook. Papyrus, the ancient Egyptian version of high-quality paper, is far too expensive for a mere student to waste with clumsy scrawls. You will spend years practicing on these bits of rock and clay, which can be washed and reused. It is the ancient equivalent of a perpetually erasable whiteboard, only much, much heavier. Your first lesson is not about the majesty of the gods or the history of the pharaohs. It is about making a pen. Pentu leads you and the other no boys to the banks of a nearby canal. He shows you how to select the right kind of reed. Not too thick, not too thin. Then he shows you how to cut it to the proper length and, most unpleasantly, how to chew on the end, carefully fraying the fibres to create a small brush. The taste is bitter and grassy. This is your pen, an organic, biodegradable, and thoroughly disgusting writing instrument. Back in the courtyard, you are shown how to mix your ink. A small block of solid pigment, usually black soot mixed with a binder like gum arabic, is rubbed on a wetted stone palette to create a usable ink. This is your entire stationery set. A rock, a chewed stick, and a cake of soot. The real work begins, and it is agonizing. You are not learning an alphabet of 26 letters. You are learning hieroglyphs. There are over 700 common signs to memorize. Some represent sounds, some represent whole words, and some are determinatives, silent signs that tell you the category of the word. An image of a man, an owl, a leg, a ripple of water, coil of rope. Each has a name, a meaning, and a precise way it must be drawn. Your first attempts are clumsy, childish scribbles, and for every misplaced line, for every poorly proportioned ibis, Pentu's cane whistles through the air and cracks against your knuckles or your shoulders. The line is weak, he barks. The owl looks sick. Do it again. This is your life now. Pain, repetition, and the crushing sense of failure. The days are long and monotonous. They begin at dawn and end at dusk, with only a short break for a midday meal of bread and water. Your entire curriculum consists of copying. You copy lists of words. You copy simple sentences. You copy letters, legal documents, and passages from famous texts. One of the most common texts you are forced to copy over and over is called the Satyr of the Trades. It's a piece of propaganda designed to reinforce how lucky you are to be a scribe by describing, in brutal detail, how awful every other job is. You write about the potter, caked in mud like a crocodile, the weaver, stuck in a cramped room, breathing lint, and the soldier, beaten like a roll of papyrus. It's meant to be inspiring, but as your hand cramps and your back aches from sitting on the ground all day, you can't help but feel that being beaten like a roll of papyrus is a universal experience. You spend months, years, just mastering the basic hieroglyphic signs. Your hand, once soft, is now permanently stained with black ink, and a hard callus has formed on your middle finger where your reed pen rests. You learn to draw a perfect seated man, a flawless horned viper, a precise water ripple. Your work is no longer clumsy. The lines are confident, the proportions correct. Just when you think you have mastered the system, you are introduced to hieratic. This is the cursive, everyday script used for letters and administration. It is to hieroglyphs what handwriting is to printing. Every beautiful pictorial hieroglyph has a corresponding squiggly, abbreviated hieratic sign. It is a whole new system to learn, a shorthand that bears only a passing resemblance to the formal script. So you start again. More copying, more drills, more beatings. Your mind becomes a library of symbols, a complex database of shapes and sounds. You learn mathematics, how to calculate areas of land, volumes of grain, and the proper ratios for mixing beer. It's not abstract learning for the sake of knowledge. It is intensely practical. You are being trained to be a cog in the vast, intricate machine of the Egyptian state. The school is not just about writing. It is about discipline and endurance. You are hazed by the older boys, forced to do their chores, to fetch their water. You learn to be tough, to be resilient, to keep your head down. You see boys give up. They run away, back to the familiar misery of the fields. Or their parents can no longer afford the gifts for the masters. But you persevere. You are driven by your father's command and the memory of his back-breaking labour. You will not fail. Slowly, you climb the ladder. You are no longer the new boy. You are now the older student. And though you try to be kinder, you find yourself enforcing the same harsh discipline on the younger boys. It is the only way the system works. After more than a decade of this relentless training, the day finally comes. There is no graduation ceremony, no diploma. Pentu simply looks at a practice scroll you have written, a copy of a legal contract, and gives a rare, almost imperceptible nod. "It is sufficient," he says. "Go to the House of Records. They have work for you." That's it. 12 years of your life, culminating in the words, "It is sufficient." You are now a scribe. You walk out of the courtyard for the last time, not with a sense of triumph, but with a quiet, weary sense of relief. You are no longer a student. You are a professional. You have escaped the mud of the fields. You have made it. Your first assignment is not what you dreamed of. You imagined yourself in the great temple library, copying the sacred book of the dead, or perhaps taking dictation from the pharaoh himself. The reality is far more mundane. You are assigned to the granary of Amun, a vast complex of beehive-shaped silos where the temple's wealth, in the form of grain, is stored. Your job is to be an accountant. You sit at a small wooden table near the entrance to a silo, a fresh roll of papyrus before you. All day long, you record inventory. Day 3 of the second month of the season of Shemu, you write in neat hieratic script. Received from the farmer Amenhotep of the Western District, 30 sacks of barley. Received from the farmer Nakt, 55 sacks of wheat. The work is mind-numbingly repetitive. The air is thick with grain dust that coats your skin and makes you cough. The sun beats down on the bustling yard. You are surrounded by the grunts of labourers hauling heavy sacks, the braying of donkeys, and the shouts of overseers. You are not creating beautiful literature. You are not recording the deeds of gods and kings. You are counting. You have mastered one of the world's most complex writing systems in order to become a glorified warehouse clerk. It's a sobering realization. This is the bedrock of the Egyptian state. Not magic, but meticulous, tedious bookkeeping. Your scribe's kit is now your constant companion. It is a rectangular wooden pallet with 2 depressions carved into it, one for a cake of red ink and one for black. Red ink is used for headings, totals, and important dates, the ancient equivalent of hitting the bold or underline key. The pallet has a slot carved into it to hold your reed brushes. You carry it everywhere. It is the badge of your office. The labourers, their bodies gleaming with sweat, look at you with a mixture of awe and resentment. You are one of the elite. You don't have to lift the sacks, but you see the boredom in the eyes of the other scribes. They have been doing this for years. They have perfected the art of looking busy while doing very little. This, you realise, is another essential scribal skill you must learn. Sometimes your work takes you outside the temple walls. After the annual inundation recedes, leaving a fresh layer of fertile black soil, an army of scribes is dispatched to the fields. Your job is to work with the surveyors, the rope stretchers, to remeasure the farmlands. The old boundary markers are often washed away by the flood, and new ones must be established so that the proper taxes can be levied. You leave the relative comfort of the temple and trudge through the thick black mud of the Nile Delta. The sun is relentless. Insects swarm around you. You are not a welcome visitor. The farmers view you with deep suspicion. You are the taxman. You are the representative of a distant, demanding government that takes a significant portion of their hard-earned harvest. They try to trick you. They argue about the placement of a boundary stone. They try to bribe you with a chicken or a small jug of beer. They plead poverty, telling you of their sick children and their dying livestock. You have to be firm, impassive. Your job is to record the measurements as the surveyors call them out, to calculate the area of the field, and to assess the tax. Field of the farmer Pacer. You write on your papyrus scroll, 2.5 arurus, tax owed, 5 sacks of barley. You are no longer a revered keeper of knowledge. Here in the fields, you are an instrument of oppression. You see the fear and hatred in the farmer's eyes, and you recognize it. It is the same look you saw in your own father's eyes when the tax collectors came to your village. It's a deeply uncomfortable feeling. You are caught between 2 worlds. You are no longer one of them, the people of the soil, but you are not truly one of the elite, the priests and nobles who will enjoy the fruits of this taxation. You are a middle manager, a functionary, doing the necessary but unpleasant work that keeps the system running. Sometimes the job holds a promise of adventure, which is often just another word for danger. A senior scribe might be assigned to a major state expedition. This is a high-status posting, but it is fraught with peril. You could be sent with a quarrying expedition deep into the eastern desert to procure stone for a new temple. Your job is to keep a meticulous journal of the expedition, a daybook. You record the number of men, the rations distributed each day, the tools used, the number of stone blocks cut and transported. But you are also exposed to the brutal realities of the desert, the scorching heat, the lack of water, the scorpions and snakes, bandits and desert nomads are a constant threat. Or you might be assigned to a trading mission to Nubia to the south, a long and perilous journey up the Nile. You are responsible for the manifest, listing every item being traded, linen, honey, weapons, and every item received in return, ivory, ebony, incense, and gold. The journey takes months. You face treacherous river rapids, dangerous animals, and potentially hostile foreign tribes. If your records are lost, if the manifest is damaged, it is a disaster. The entire expedition could be deemed a failure, and the blame would fall squarely on you. Your ability to write is the only thing that justifies your presence. You are not a warrior. You are not a sailor. You are a liability who must be protected at all costs, because you are the one holding the receipts. So while your friends back in the temple are counting grain, you could be huddled in a tent during a sandstorm, desperately trying to protect your precious papyrus scroll from the elements. You are a living, breathing database, and your survival is tied to the survival of your records. It's a strange kind of pressure. One mistake in your accounting, one lost scroll, could have more severe consequences than a lost battle. It is in these moments that you truly understand the weight of your role. The Egyptian empire is not held together by stone and muscle alone. It is held together by ink and papyrus, by your meticulous and often dangerous work. Despite the tedium and the danger, there are undeniable perks to your position. You are, after all, part of the educated elite, a rare privilege in a largely illiterate world. You're exempt from the corvée, the dreaded state labour tax that could see any common man conscripted to haul stones for a pyramid or dig a canal. While the farmers toil in the fields, you work in the shade. Your rations are better and more varied. You receive allocations of bread, beer, fish and vegetables from the temple stores, a far cry from the simple diet of the peasantry. You live in a small but comfortable mud brick house within the temple complex, a safe and orderly community. There is also a deep sense of belonging. You are part of the vast eternal machinery of the Temple of Amun-Ra, one of the most powerful institutions in Egypt. You walk the same colonnaded halls that have been walked by scribes for 1,000 years. You participate in the daily rituals, your voice joining the chorus chanting hymns to the gods. You have access to the house of books, the temple library, a place of profound silence and scholarly reverence. Here, scrolls are stored in clay jars or wooden chests, each with a small clay tag identifying its contents. You can read histories, medical texts, collections of poetry, and guides to the afterlife. This is the fulfillment of the dream. In these quiet moments, surrounded by the accumulated knowledge of your civilization, you feel the true power of your craft. You can read the words of men who have been dead for centuries. You can learn remedies for scorpion stings, instructions for mummification, and prayers to ensure a safe passage into the underworld. An illiterate noble might be your social superior, but he needs you to read his letters. He needs you to draft his will. He needs you to manage his estate. Knowledge you have learned is its own form of power, quieter and more enduring than brute force. Years pass. You are no longer a junior accountant. You have risen through the ranks. You are now a senior scribe, a master of your craft. Your hands are permanently stained with ink, your back perpetually stooped from bending over scrolls. You have a small office of your own and junior scribes who work for you. You see the mixture of fear and awe in their eyes, and you recognize yourself so many years ago. You are now the master, the one holding the cane, though you wield it less often than Pentu did. You have learned that a well-placed word of criticism can be more effective than a blow. You look back on your life's work. It is not a single great masterpiece. It is an accumulation of thousands of mundane documents. You have recorded tax assessments, inventoried temple offerings, drafted marriage contracts, and written letters for soldiers to their families. You have been the silent, invisible hand that has recorded the small details of countless lives. You once dreamed of writing for pharaohs, but you have come to understand that the true history of Egypt is not just in the grand pronouncements carved on monuments. It is in your records of grain and livestock. It is in the legal dispute between two farmers over a water canal. It is in the last will and testament of a dying old woman. You have become a link in an immense, unbroken chain. The knowledge you learned from your masters, you are now passing on to your apprentices. The script you write is the same script used by the scribes, who served the pyramid builders 1,000 years before you. Your life has not been one of adventure or glory. It has been one of service, of meticulous and patient dedication. You did not build the temples, but you recorded the payment for every single brick. You did not win the wars, but you wrote the letters home. The role of the scribe was a paradox. It was a life of privilege built on a foundation of brutal training. It was a path to power that was paved with soul-crushing boredom. The scribe was at once a revered scholar and a despised bureaucrat, an office clerk and an adventurer. They were the glue that held the entire civilization together. And their greatest contribution was not in the epic poems or religious texts they copied, but in the mundane lists, the receipts, the contracts. It is because of their tedious, thankless work that we can reconstruct their world with such incredible detail. Every sack of barley they counted is a word in the story of ancient Egypt, a story they wrote, one careful character at a time.